Daniel had been riding for hours under the burning desert sun, hoping to reach his ranch before nightfall. His horse, a calm brown mare named Dusty, had a loose saddle strap that needed fixing. He stopped near an old dry wash, a place where the wind carried sand like soft whispers. As he knelt down to adjust the leather strap, he felt someone watching him. It was a quiet feeling at first, the kind that made the back of the neck tighten. He looked up slowly, expecting maybe a coyote or a stray traveler, but instead, he saw a woman standing several steps away, partly hidden behind a small patch of desert brush. She wore traditional Apache clothing, her long, dark hair braided loosely over her shoulder. She looked tired and dusty, but her posture was straight, her eyes alert and brave. Daniel lifted his hat politely, trying not to startle her. Encounters in the desert could go many ways, but he believed in showing respect first. "Afternoon," he said in a calm voice. The woman stepped forward, her face serious. She looked at him for a long moment, as if studying whether he was the right person to speak to. Then she said something so sudden and unexpected that Daniel almost dropped the saddle strap. "If you don't like your wife, I can be the second." For a few seconds Daniel simply blinked, unsure if he heard her correctly. Dusty flicked her ears, and the desert wind rustled the quiet space between them. Daniel cleared his throat, his mind scrambling for words. The woman's tone wasn't playful or joking. She meant what she said. "I don't have a wife," Daniel finally managed to say, confused and trying to be polite at the same time. She frowned, as if he had said something unbelievable. She took another step closer and looked him straight in the eyes. "Every cowboy has a wife. You have land. You have a horse. You must have someone waiting." Daniel shook his head gently. "No, ma'am. No one is waiting for me. I live alone." The woman's serious expression wavered for a moment. It wasn't disappointment. It was something deeper, almost like worry mixed with urgency. She folded her hands together tightly, and Daniel noticed her breath was unsteady, even though she tried to hide it. He could see now that she was tired, maybe even frightened, though she carried herself like someone trying very hard not to show any weakness. He stood up slowly, careful not to make any movement she might see as threatening. "Are you lost?" he asked quietly. "Do you need water?" At the mention of water, her eyes softened. She nodded once, not eager, just accepting help with dignity. Daniel reached into his saddlebag, pulled out a canteen, and walked toward her with slow steps. She hesitated before taking it, but eventually lifted it to her lips and drank deeply. When she handed it back, Daniel could see her hands trembling the slightest bit. "My name is Daniel Hayes," he said, trying to bring some calm to the strange moment. She hesitated before replying. "Tala." Her voice had strength, but underneath it Daniel sensed a weight she carried alone. Her eyes kept shifting to the horizon, scanning the empty desert, as if making sure no one was following her. Daniel decided not to press her with questions. The desert taught him patience. After a while, Tala spoke again, her voice lower this time, more cautious. "You say you have no wife," she repeated softly, as if testing whether he was telling the truth. "That's right," he said. She looked confused again. "Then why do you live alone?" Daniel let out a small breath and smiled a tired smile. "Some people just do. Life doesn't always give everyone a family." Tala looked down at the sand, her hand tightening around the canteen. Something inside her shifted, as if his answer touched a thought she didn't want to show. She finally said, "I thought maybe you needed a second place. If the first woman was not good to you." She tried to keep her voice strong, but Daniel could tell she wasn't used to speaking like this to strangers. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't boldness. It was desperation hiding behind bravery. Daniel gently shook his head. "I don't have a first, much less a second." The wind moved between them again, warm and dry. Tala stepped back slightly, pressing her lips together. Daniel sensed she felt embarrassed, not because of her words, but because her situation was forcing her to speak to him in such a way. He took a slow breath. "Tala," he said softly, You can tell me if something is wrong. You look like you've been traveling far." At first, she didn't respond. Her eyes stayed fixed on the desert horizon, but he saw the tension in her shoulders. He saw the way she held herself like someone who expected danger at any moment. Daniel wasn't someone who intruded on other people's lives. But he was decent, and decent men couldn't ignore someone in trouble. "You don't need to explain," he added gently. "But if you need help, you can sit in the shade while I finish fixing this saddle. You look tired." Tala didn't thank him. Not in words. Instead, she took a slow step toward the patch of shade, created by a small rock formation. She lowered herself to the ground, keeping one knee bent so she could stand quickly if she needed to. Daniel pretended not to notice the way she remained alert, ready to run if anything seemed dangerous. As he worked on the saddle, he kept glancing toward her. She sat with her back straight, her eyes scanning the land. She wasn't afraid of him, she was afraid of something else, something she didn't want near her. After several quiet minutes, Tala finally spoke again. Her voice was steady but carried the weight of someone hiding too much. "You are alone," she said, "and you do not lie." "I know this now." Daniel nodded, not turning around so she wouldn't feel stared at. "But you wonder why I said those words," she continued. Daniel didn't deny it. It was a surprising thing to hear. Tala exhaled slowly. "I said it because I needed a man who would not push me away. I needed someone who would let me stay close, even if I had to be the second place in his home." She paused. "I thought maybe that would be enough to make you let me stay." Daniel turned his head slightly, surprised by how honest she was being. "Stay? Where?" he asked gently. "Anywhere safe," she whispered. "Somewhere I would not be taken back." Daniel didn't ask by whom. He didn't need to. Her trembling hands told him enough. She wasn't playing games. She wasn't joking. She wasn't making strange offers for fun. She was hoping to survive something she didn't dare speak out loud yet. He tightened the final strap on the saddle and stood up. "Tala," he said quietly, "you don't have to offer yourself as anyone's second. You don't owe me anything. But if you need safety, I can give you water, food, and rest for now. No conditions." She looked up at him with eyes filled with surprise, as if she hadn't expected kindness from a stranger. She studied him again, her expression softer now, though still cautious. "Why?" she asked simply. Daniel shrugged a little. "Because you look tired, and because helping someone who needs it isn't a hard thing to do." For the first time since he met her, Tala's face softened, her expression no longer just guarded but grateful. She nodded slowly, accepting his offer in silence. Daniel held Dusty's reins, preparing to lead the horse. "My ranch isn't far from here," he said. "You're welcome to walk with me. No one will trouble you on my land." Tala stood up slowly, brushing sand from her clothes. She walked toward him with measured steps, still watchful, but no longer tense with fear. And as they started walking together across the quiet desert, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that this chance meeting would change both of their lives in ways neither of them could yet imagine. Daniel and Tala walked side by side across the quiet desert, the sun gently lowering behind the hills. Dusty walked slowly, as if sensing the tense air around the two humans. Daniel kept glancing at Tala from the corner of his eye. She walked with steady steps, but her breathing was shallow, and her eyes kept scanning the open land behind them. Whatever she was running from, it had shaken her deeply. Daniel didn't ask any questions while they walked. He didn't want to push her. He knew people revealed truth only when they felt safe. Instead, he spoke about simple things, how far the ranch was, how the evenings were cooler near the creek, how Dusty hated cold weather. He noticed Tala, listening carefully, holding on to each harmless word like it helped her trust him a little more. When they reached the wooden gate of his ranch, Tala paused. Her eyes softened for the first time. Daniel's land wasn't large, but it was peaceful. There were tall cottonwood trees near the stream, a small barn, and a cabin built from old pine logs. Smoke curled softly from the chimney, showing Daniel had left a fire burning earlier that morning. A gentle breeze carried the smell of hay and warm soil. "This place," Tala whispered. "It feels quiet." "It is," Daniel said. "Quiet is something I've always been good at keeping." She nodded slowly, then followed him toward the cabin. Dusty trotted off toward the trough to drink water, and Daniel opened the cabin door wide so Tala wouldn't feel confined. The inside was simple wooden floor, a small table, a stove, and a few shelves. Daniel kept it clean, not because he expected visitors, but because he liked order. Tala stood near the doorway, not entering fully. Daniel realized she was waiting for permission. "You can sit," he said kindly. "You're safe here." She stepped inside carefully, as if afraid she might damage something. Daniel placed his hat on the hook, then offered her a seat. She lowered herself slowly, her back straight, her eyes scanning the room without touching anything. Daniel grabbed a cup and poured her water. She drank with slow sips, trying to keep her hands steady. After a quiet moment, she spoke. "You said I could rest," she said softly. "But you did not ask me why I ran." Daniel sat across from her. "I figured you'd tell me if you wanted to." Tala breathed out slowly, a sound filled with both relief and sadness. "Many people ask too fast," she said. "They want to know everything. They do not let a person breathe." Daniel nodded gently. "You can take your time." She stared at the cup in her hands, tracing its rim with her finger. She was thinking hard. He didn't push. The fire crackled in the background, filling the silence with warmth instead of pressure. Finally, Tala placed the cup down and looked at him. "In my tribe," she began slowly, "decisions are made with the whole family. My uncle is a respected elder. He believes strong bonds keep us united." Daniel listened intently. Tala spoke with care, choosing each word as though revealing pieces of a heavy truth. "He arranged a marriage for me," she continued. "Not because he wanted to hurt me, but because he thought it would protect our family." Her hands tightened slightly on her knees. "The man he chose. I did not wish to join him. We did not understand each other. He wanted someone different. I wanted a partner who listened." Daniel's expression remained calm, but inside he felt a quiet ache. She wasn't running from danger in the violent sense. She was running from a future she didn't choose. "I tried to speak with my uncle," Tala said, her voice trembling a little. "But he said a promise had already been made. Breaking it would bring trouble. He believed I would grow used to the decision." Daniel spoke softly. "But you couldn't accept it." Tala shook her head. "My heart would not let me. I tried to live with the idea, but every sunrise made me feel smaller. I felt trapped inside a choice that wasn't mine." She paused, looking toward the window where twilight was settling across the ranch. The light touched her face gently, revealing a deep sadness. "So I ran," she whispered. "Not because I disliked my people. I loved them, but I feared losing myself." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "You were very brave." Tala blinked in surprise. "Brave?" she repeated. "Yes," Daniel said. "Walking into the desert alone, coming to a stranger, speaking honestly despite fear that takes courage." Tala looked down, almost shyly. "I thought I would be rejected," she admitted. "A woman asking for help. A woman offering a place for herself. It is not something I ever planned to say." She hesitated. "I thought maybe if a man already had a wife, he would think less of me. Maybe he would allow me to stay because I would not take the first woman's place." Daniel understood now. Her strange offer earlier wasn't boldness, it was desperation shaped into the only word she could think of. "You don't need to be anybody's second," he said gently. "Not here." She met his eyes, searching for any sign of mockery, but found none. "You trust me," she said quietly. Daniel shrugged slightly. "You trust me enough to walk here with me. That's worth something." A small warmth grew in her expression. Not a smile exactly, but something close. After a moment, Daniel stood up. "You must be hungry. I'll fix something simple." Tala started to rise too. "I can help." "You rest," Daniel said. "You've done enough walking for one day." but Tala gently insisted. Let me help with something small. If I sit still too long, my thoughts will follow me too far. He understood that feeling, so he nodded. Together they moved around the small kitchen area. Tala was careful, touching everything lightly, as if it were fragile. She cut vegetables, while Daniel prepared bread and beans. They worked in quiet harmony, the kind that forms naturally when two people respect each other without needing many words. When the food was ready, Daniel placed plates on the table. Tala waited until he sat first before she began eating. It was a small gesture of respect, something Daniel didn't overlook. They ate slowly, not rushing, letting the warmth of the meal settle the tension between them. After a while, Tala asked, You really live here alone? Daniel nodded. Been that way for a long time. Do you not feel lonely? She asked. Sometimes, he admitted honestly. But the quiet helps me think, and the land doesn't argue with you. Tala lowered her gaze. My tribe is full of voices, full of people, but I still felt alone. She looked up again. This place feels different. That simple sentence carried more meaning than any long explanation. After they finished eating, Daniel showed her the barn loft where she could rest. It was clean, warm, and private. Tala touched the hay bedding gently, almost like it was the softest comfort she had felt in days. You can sleep here without fear, Daniel said softly. I'll be nearby if you need anything. Tala looked at him with gratitude, her voice quiet but steady. Thank you. You did not have to help me, but you did. Daniel smiled lightly. Everyone deserves a safe place. Tonight, this is yours. Before lying down, Tala paused at the top of the ladder. You listened to me, she said. No one else did. Daniel simply nodded. Rest now. Tomorrow will be easier. She settled into the loft, her eyes finally letting go of the constant watchfulness. Daniel stepped outside, giving her the space she needed. As the stars appeared, bright and peaceful above the ranch, Daniel felt something shift inside him. He didn't know where Tala's journey would lead. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't walk away from her story now. The next morning arrived with soft, golden light slipping through the barn boards. Daniel had woken early, as he always did, to begin his chores. But today felt different. He moved quietly, not wanting to disturb Tala, who had finally found rest after days of fear and uncertainty. When he stepped outside, the cool air carried the soft sounds of the ranch, waking up Dusty snorting near the trough, a few birds calling from the cottonwoods, and the gentle rustle of the creek nearby. Daniel filled a bucket with water and began walking toward the corral when he noticed movement in the barn loft above. Tala was already awake. She stepped down the ladder slowly, her hair loose from sleep, her eyes still holding a little tiredness but more peace than the day before. She saw Daniel and paused, unsure if she should approach him right away. You're up early, Daniel said kindly, setting the bucket down. I heard you working, she replied softly. I thought I should help. You've had a long journey, he said. You shouldn't push yourself. Tala shook her head gently. Working keeps the mind steady. Daniel understood. He nodded, allowing her to join him. She stepped closer, her feet brushing against the soft dirt, and watched as he poured the water into the trough. The ranch felt calm that morning, the kind of calm that made a person breathe easier. Tala looked around with quiet curiosity. She walked a little slower than usual, taking in every corner of the ranch, the fence lines, the barn, the open field beyond. She traced her hand lightly along the wooden rail, as if feeling the strength of the place. Daniel noticed her expression. You like it here? It feels open, she said, not like a cage. Her voice carried a mixture of gratitude and sadness. Daniel didn't pry, but he sensed that Tala hadn't felt truly free in a long time. He handed her a small brush. If you want, you can help me brush Dusty. Her eyes brightened a little. I would like that. Dusty stood patiently as Tala approached, gently placing her hand on the mare's neck. The horse didn't shy away. Instead, she lowered her head slightly, accepting Tala's presence. Tala brushed Dusty with slow, careful strokes, her movements calm and steady. Daniel watched from nearby, noticing how naturally she worked with the animal, as if she had done it many times before. "You're good with horses," he said. Tala nodded. "My people teach us to respect animals. They have hearts we should not ignore." "Ah," Daniel smiled. "Dusty seems to like you." Tala paused, placing her hand softly on the horse's shoulder. "Animals can feel when someone is afraid," she said quietly. "But they don't judge it." Her words revealed more than she intended. Daniel didn't respond right away. Instead, he focused on feeding the animals, giving her space to gather her thoughts. As they worked through the morning, Tala helped him carry feed, clean the small coop, and repair a loose board on the fence. She followed his instructions closely, and Daniel was surprised by how quickly she learned. She moved like someone used to responsibility, someone who didn't shy away from work. By midday, the sun was high, and Daniel led Tala back to the cabin for a simple meal. He placed food on the table and stepped aside to let her sit. Tala hesitated, then spoke softly. "You treat me with respect," she said, "even though I came to your land without asking." Daniel sat across from her. "Someone coming in fear doesn't need judgment. They need understanding." Tala lowered her gaze. "Not many people think that way." "They should," Daniel replied. She took a few bites, then grew quiet again. Daniel recognized the look in her eyes. She was thinking about something heavy. "Is something bothering you?" he asked gently. Tala sighed. "I do not know if staying here will bring trouble to you." "Trouble doesn't worry me much," Daniel said. "But you hiding something from your tribe that must be heavy." Tala looked at him with worry. "They will come looking for me. I don't know when. But they will." Daniel nodded calmly. "Then we'll face that when it happens." Tala stared at him, surprised by his steady tone. "You speak as if you are not afraid." Daniel shrugged slightly. "Fear isn't useful if it stops us from doing what's right." His answer silenced her for a moment. She looked down at her hands, thinking deeply. After a long pause, she finally spoke again. "You do not understand. My people are not cruel. They only believe in traditions. They think the path chosen for me is the one I must take. But I cannot walk a path that does not belong to me." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "Everyone deserves to choose their own life." Tala's eyes softened. "You say simple words, but they mean so much." The afternoon passed quietly, with both of them returning to the ranch chores. Tala gathered wood for the stove, learning how to stack it neatly. Daniel repaired a broken hinge on the cabin door while Tala watched, asking small questions about how tools worked. It was peaceful, almost like they had known each other longer than a single day. But peace never lasted long in places where whispers traveled fast. As evening approached, Daniel noticed dust rising in the distance, a sign of riders. His body stiffened with instinct. Tala saw the change in his expression and looked toward the horizon. Her breath caught sharply. "My people," she whispered. Daniel stood straight, watching the shapes grow clearer. There were 3 riders, proud, calm, but moving with purpose. They weren't charging, but they weren't wandering either. They were coming with intention. Tala's hands trembled slightly. "I knew they would find me." Daniel turned to her. "You don't have to face them alone." Her eyes widened. "You would stand with me?" "Yes," Daniel said simply. "You're under my roof. That makes you someone I protect." Tala blinked slowly, touched by his certainty. She wasn't used to receiving that kind of support from someone outside her tribe. The riders approached the ranch gate, their horses well-trained and quiet. The man in front, a strong figure with sharp eyes and long braids, dismounted first. Tala's breath shivered. "That is the warrior they chose for me," she said quietly. Daniel stepped forward calmly, not aggressive but firm. Tala stayed behind him, gathering her strength. The warrior looked at Daniel, and then at Tala. His gaze held confusion, frustration, and something else, responsibility. "Tala," he said firmly in his language, then repeated it in English. "You must come home." Tala stepped forward slightly, but Daniel placed a gentle hand behind her, letting her know she didn't have to move unless she chose to. "I came here by choice," she said, her voice steady. "I was not taken." The warrior frowned. "Your uncle believes you are lost." "I am not lost," she replied. "I left because I was not heard." Daniel watched silently, allowing her to speak for herself. The other riders observed without anger, their expressions more solemn than threatening. The warrior turned to Daniel. "Did you take her from the tribe?" Daniel shook his head. "No. She came to me asking for safety. I gave her water, food, and a place to rest. Nothing more." The warrior studied him closely, searching for lies, but found none. Daniel didn't flinch. After a tense silence, one of the older riders stepped forward. His voice was calmer, steadier. "If she stays, the tribe will not force her back, but she must be protected. Her choice must be honored." The younger warrior looked conflicted but didn't argue. The older man continued, "We do not fight a man who treats someone with respect." Tala lowered her head slightly, overwhelmed by emotion. The riders mounted their horses again. Before leaving, the older man said to Daniel, "If she stays with you, you hold responsibility. Keep her safe." Daniel nodded. "I will." When the riders disappeared into the distance, Tala's legs weakened. Daniel caught her before she stumbled. "They listened," she whispered. For the first time, they listened. Daniel helped her stand steady. "They listened because you were brave enough to speak." Tala looked up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude, relief, and something softer that she couldn't yet describe. "You protected me," she said quietly. "I just did what felt right," Daniel answered. But Tala shook her head slowly. "No, you did more than that." The sky shifted to deep orange, and the air cooled around them. For the first time since Daniel found her in the desert, Tala allowed herself to breathe without fear. The sun dipped behind the hills, leaving a soft orange glow across the ranch. The air felt lighter now, as if the whole land had taken a deep breath after the tense meeting with the Apache riders. Daniel stood quietly beside Tala, still steadying her as she tried to regain her balance. She wiped her eyes softly. Though she hadn't cried, she was simply overwhelmed by the weight of everything that had just happened. For the first time in many days, Tala wasn't looking over her shoulder. She wasn't waiting for footsteps behind her. She wasn't preparing to run. She stood there beside Daniel, breathing slowly, letting the truth settle inside her. She was free. Her people had listened. They had respected her choice. Yet her emotions were tangled. Relief mixed with guilt, guilt mixed with hope, and hope mixed with fear of what came next. Daniel led her toward the cabin porch, guiding her gently. "Sit for a moment," he said. "The day has been long." Tala sat down on the wooden step, her hands resting on her lap. She watched the sky change colors, the orange turning to pink, then purple. Daniel sat beside her, giving her space but offering silent company. For a while, they said nothing. The quiet wasn't heavy. It was the kind of quiet that let two people breathe together without needing to explain anything. After some time, Tala spoke, her voice soft. "When I left my village, I thought my people would never see my side. I thought they would only see tradition and duty. I expected anger, maybe even rejection." Daniel looked at her. "They didn't reject you. They came for you because they cared." Tala nodded slowly. "Yes, but they also expected me to return without question." She inhaled deeply. "When I saw them today, for a moment I thought everything was over. I thought they would take me back, and I would not have the strength to refuse." "Informant," Daniel listened quietly, his gaze gentle. "But you stood with me," Tala continued. "You said I didn't have to face them alone." Her voice trembled lightly. "But not from fear. No one has ever stood between me and a difficult choice before. Not like that." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, feeling a little shy. "I'm not one for turning my back when someone needs help." Tala studied him for a moment. "You helped me, even when you did not understand everything about my situation. You helped without asking anything." Daniel shrugged slightly. "That's what a decent person does." Tala smiled softly for the first time. It wasn't wide or bright, but it was real. Decent, she repeated quietly, as if the word itself had meaning she hadn't felt in a long time. The evening deepened. A cool breeze brushed past them, carrying the sounds of night, beginning the chirping of insects, the gentle sway of tall grass, and the crackle of the fire inside the cabin. Daniel finally stood up. "Let's go inside. You need something warm to eat after a day like this." Tala followed him into the cabin. The fire he had built earlier cast a glow across the wooden walls. Daniel began preparing a simple stew, chopping vegetables while Tala watched quietly. After a moment, she walked closer and reached for a small knife. "Let me help," she said gently. "I want to do something useful." "You've done enough for one day," Daniel replied. Tala shook her head. "Doing nothing makes me uneasy." Daniel nodded and handed her a small carrot. "All right. But just the easy part." They worked together side by side, silent but comfortable. Their movements fell into rhythm, Daniel stirring the pot, Tala slicing vegetables with precise, practiced cuts. At one point, their hands brushed lightly when both reached for a bowl. They both paused, but neither pulled away quickly. It wasn't awkward, it was calm and natural. After dinner, Daniel offered Tala a blanket and a place to rest again in the barn loft. But Tala hesitated. "Is it all right if I stay here a little longer?" she asked softly, pointing toward the chair near the fire. "Of course," Daniel said. "You can stay wherever you feel safe." She sat by the fire, hugging the blanket close, but not for warmth, more for comfort. Daniel sat on the other side of the cabin, fixing one of his old leather boots out of habit. The peacefulness of the cabin settled between them, warm and easy. After a while, Tala's voice broke the silence. "When I first met you in the desert," she began slowly, "I thought you were just another cowboy. Someone who would turn me away, or someone who would misunderstand my words." She lowered her gaze slightly. "I never expected kindness." Daniel didn't look up immediately. He finished tightening a stitch before responding. "Most folks think kindness is weakness. But it's not." She looked at him, curious. "It takes strength to care," Daniel continued softly, "even when it's easier not to." Tala's eyes softened again. "You speak in simple words, but they settle deeply." Daniel felt a warmth in his chest he wasn't used to, but he didn't show it. He simply nodded. The fire crackled. The night darkened. Daniel stood and checked the door, making sure it was secure. Leo, his old hound dog, came out of the bedroom corner and sniffed around Tala curiously before lying down near her feet. Tala laughed lightly when the dog rested his head on her ankle. "He likes you," Daniel said. Tala looked down at the dog, gently placing her hand on his back. "Animals trust quickly," she said, "but only good people earn that trust so fast." Daniel swallowed lightly at her words. He wasn't used to praise. He wasn't used to company. His life had always been quiet, predictable, almost lonely. But Tala's presence brought something new, gentle warmth, like the soft glow of the fire between them. After a long stretch of comfortable silence, Tala finally rose from the chair. "I should rest," she said softly. "It has been a long day." Daniel walked her to the barn and helped her climb the loft ladder, making sure she had enough blankets and a clean lantern in case she needed light. Before he turned to leave, Tala called softly from above. "Daniel?" He looked up. "Yes?" She held the blanket close and looked down with grateful eyes. "Thank you for everything. Today, I felt heard for the first time." Daniel nodded, his voice gentle. "You're welcome, Tala. You're safe here." "Tala." Tranced to the well, "Tala." "Tala," she nodded back. He stepped outside, closing the barn door softly behind him. The night sky stretched overhead, filled with stars that glittered like tiny lanterns. Daniel walked toward the cabin, but halfway there, he paused. He turned to look back at the barn, at the faint glow of Tala's lantern shining through a sliver between the boards. He felt a strange, warm ache inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. He couldn't explain it. He didn't try to. He just knew that from the moment he found Tala in the desert, His quiet life had taken a turn he never expected. And now, a new road had opened, one he hadn't planned for, but one he didn't want to walk away from. The next morning came with a soft chill in the air, the kind that made the ranch feel peaceful and new. Daniel woke before sunrise, as he always did. But today he moved slower, like he was trying to hold on to the quiet before the world began changing again. He stepped outside, looked toward the barn, and saw a faint light inside. Tala was awake. He walked over, pushing the door gently so it wouldn't creak. Tala stood near the ladder, adjusting her blanket around her shoulders. Her eyes were clear and rested, much different from the frightened, exhausted woman he had met in the desert. She looked peaceful, almost hopeful. "You're up early," Daniel said softly. Tala smiled gently. "I heard the birds. They woke me before the sun." Daniel nodded. "They wake everyone before the sun." She walked toward him slowly, her feet brushing softly against the barn floor. "I wanted to thank you again," she said. "For yesterday. For everything you have done." Daniel shook his head. "You don't owe me thanks. You needed help. I did what anyone should have done." Tala studied his face carefully. "Not everyone would have helped a stranger," she said. "Not everyone would have spoken for me when my people arrived. You stood with me when I had no one else." Not. Daniel didn't know what to say to that. Her words touched something inside him, something he had buried for years. He simply opened the barn door wider and motioned toward the open land. "Come on," he said quietly. "Let's get some air." They walked together toward the field, where the morning mist clung to the grass and the sun stretched softly across the horizon. The ranch looked alive, bright dew on the ground, the sound of the creek, the soft rustle of wind through the trees. Tala paused and took a deep breath. "This land feels free," she said. "Like it holds no judgment." Daniel looked at her. "Freedom fits you, Tala." She blushed lightly, the warmth rising to her cheeks. "I am still learning how to hold it." "Freedom feels heavy when you first carry it." Daniel nodded. "But it gets lighter with time." They stood quietly for a moment, letting the silence speak for them. The peace between them was warm, not forced, not rushed, just a calm understanding. After a while, Daniel headed toward the corral to check the horses. Tala followed, helping him pour fresh water into the trough. As she worked, she paused and looked at him with thoughtful eyes. "Daniel," she said slowly, "what do you want from life?" He blinked, surprised by the question. He scratched Dusty's neck while he thought. "I never asked myself that in a long time," he admitted. "I just worked, lived alone, and kept the ranch going. That was enough." "Is it still enough?" she asked. Daniel looked at her. Really looked at her. The morning light touched her face, softening her features, giving her an almost glowing warmth. He felt something deep inside, something gentle, something steady. "No," he said quietly. "It's not enough anymore." Tala lowered her gaze, her heart beating fast. She wasn't used to hearing words that held meaning. She wasn't used to feeling like someone saw her as more than a burden or a responsibility. She touched the wooden fence lightly. "I do not know where my future leads," she said softly. "But when I think of it, I do not feel afraid here." Klooch. That simple truth settled in the air between them. Daniel stepped closer, careful and slow. "You don't have to decide anything now," he said. "You can stay here as long as you want. This place is yours if you choose it." Tala looked at him with wide, gentle eyes. "Would you want me to stay?" she asked quietly. Daniel nodded once, firmly, with no hesitation. "Yes," he said. "I would." A soft breeze passed between them, carrying the unspoken feelings neither had dared say aloud until now. Just then, the sound of hooves echoed from afar. Daniel and Tala both turned. 3 figures approached slowly, calmly. Daniel tensed for a moment, but Tala touched his arm lightly. "It is my people," she said. "But they come in peace." The riders approached the ranch gate. This time, they didn't come with stern faces or searching eyes. They carried something different: respect. The older rider from the day before dismounted first. He walked forward, nodding to Daniel and then to Tala. "We returned," he said gently. "Not to take you, but to speak." Tala stepped closer. I am here. The elder gave a soft, approving nod. Your uncle sent a message, he said. He said he was wrong not to listen. He said your voice matters. He told us to tell you that your path is your own. Tala gasped softly, covering her mouth. She wasn't expecting such words, not so soon. Maybe not ever. The elder continued. He said you are welcome to return any time, but you are not bound by the promise he made. Tala's eyes filled with grateful emotion. He said that? Yes, the elder said. You have freedom. Those words wrapped around her like warm sunlight. She turned her face toward the sky, breathing slowly, letting the meaning settle deeply in her heart. After a few more words exchanged, the riders mounted their horses again. Before turning away, the elder looked at Daniel. You cared for her when she needed it, he said. For that, our people respect you, Daniel nodded. She earned her freedom herself. I only stood beside her. The elder smiled faintly at that. Then stand beside her still, he said. When the riders disappeared down the trail, Tala remained still for a long moment, her hands pressed against her heart. I never thought I would hear those words, she whispered. Freedom, a choice, permission to live my own life. Daniel walked closer. You have those things now. Tala turned to him, her voice trembling softly. Then I choose to stay. Not because I am hiding, but because I want to stay. Daniel felt warmth pour through his chest like a rising sun. I'm glad, he said quietly. More than you know. Tala smiled fully, her first true, full smile since the moment he met her. When I first met you, she said gently, I thought you had a wife. I thought I could only be someone's second place. Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady and warm. Tala, you were never second. Her breath caught softly, her eyes softening with deep emotion. You are the first place, he said. And the only one. Tala's smile grew warmer, her eyes shining with feeling. She looked around at the ranch, the fields, the trees, the cabin that had become her safety, and then back at Daniel, the man who had given her dignity, safety, and a home she could choose freely. This place feels like the beginning of a new life, she whispered. It is, Daniel said. She took a slow step toward him, closing the small distance between them, and stood beside him as naturally as if she had been meant to be there all along. Together they looked out across the open land, the wide sky stretching endlessly above them. The desert that once felt frightening now felt full of promise. Tala's heart felt light. Daniel's heart felt full, and the ranch once quiet and lonely felt like a home that had finally awakened.